First year in revenue was about like 300,000. The second year we did a million. Year three we did 3.2. What you did at 1.1 million may not work for 3 million, and what we're doing at 3 million may not work for 4.5 million.
Starting a business, it always takes longer than you usually think. It's always harder than you really think, and it always takes longer to make the money that you really want.
It makes sense to focus on one thing and be a niche rather than all kinds of other stuff.
We start a business to have that freedom, but it's like that freedom is set through our own efforts and our own systems and our own people in the business. It's not going to be right away, but like you said, it will be worth it.
To be successful in sales and marketing, you have to have a good solid marketing agency and you have to have a good solid system to convert them. If one of the two are broken, you're not going to get results.
If you had to restart from day one, what is something that you would have done differently? What's going on, guys? Lucas Jensen here, back with the Forward Thinking Podcast. This is episode 16. I'm feeling 16. I got my good buddy Lawrence Portnoy out of Tampa, who runs Performance Floors and Coating. And Lawrence is an absolute killer. So, Lawrence, happy to have you here, man. Thanks for jumping on.
Lucas, thank you for having me, man. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely, dude. So tell me about yourself, dude. So Performance Floors and Coating, how'd you get started? Where are you at right now? Where are you looking to go? Give me a little rundown here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're out of Tampa, Florida. We started about 3 years ago. And when we started, I didn't know too much about coatings, but I thought it's a really cool niche. It's something that's really just a niche in the market. And I noticed that there's like a lot of handymen that do it, a lot of painters that try and do it. But there wasn't too many concrete coating companies specifically. Until I, really kind of dug into it and started seeing, the ads coming up, and I saw the marketing behind it. So I saw an opportunity in the market as a niche home service business, and I thought that what other other industries out there, I thought that this could be a good opportunity.
Love that. Were you in a different home service space before, or was this kind of your first home service business?
First home service business, yeah.
First business in general, or just first home service business?
First business.
Cool. What's your background before that?
Car sales. Cars.
Car sales. Oh, let's go.
Sold cars for years, and I figured, there's when in sales, right? It's kind of like sales and marketing is really the forefront of any kind of business.
Amen to that.
So figured, why not take the sales skills into a new industry and see where sales can take you.
Love that, dude. So did you just pull the trigger, jump right in, or did you have like a coach that was helping you, or what was that whole process like, and started from going from car sales to owning an epoxy business?
Yeah, so I never had a home service business before. Obviously, we kind of started off by just watching YouTube videos and seeing the process, and eventually I took one of those like 2-day classes out in South Florida, and kind of got the basics down of what it is. Although 1 or 2 days wasn't really just enough in the industry, but more or less it allowed me to get an idea of what it is. And as I started, selling jobs slowly, and we started executing them, and eventually it grew a crew and kind of started growing from crew to crew and started having more and more crews. The biggest disadvantage was not really knowing too much in the industry and running into a lot of mistakes. A lot of people think like, garage floor coatings are, simple, but a lot of prep work involved, and a lot of things that can go wrong. And I guess that instead of taking the knowledge of really training in the industry and understanding it, we kind of just jumped into the trial and error thing, and ended up costing a lot of money and mistakes. But I mean, sales kind of cures all, right? So when you have a lot of mistakes, and you have good sales skills, it allowed us to still scale and be able to pay for those mistakes and learn as we go, and and be able to fix them up and kind of continue growing.
Love that, dude. So what was like the revenue from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 to year 4? Like, how's that growth been for you?
So the first year in revenue was about like 300,000. And that's like, I'd say 7 or 8 months into the year. I believe the second year we did 1.1 million, I think. And this is year three. Year three we did 3.2 million. So we've had exponential growth. A lot of growing pains though. A lot of growing pains in the process.
What's one of your biggest growing pains right now? Going from 300,000 to 1.2 to you said 3.2 last year,
3.2, yeah.
and then this year you're pacing for what, four, four, five?
You're about right. Yeah, 4.5. Yep,
Oh,
four
let's
and a
go,
half.
dude. So what would you say is like the main growing pain for you right now, Lawrence?
So when you're starting off smaller, your systems and processes, even though you can still dial them in when you're small, they constantly change as your revenue gets bigger
Mm,
because you have new people under you. Your team starts to grow, and what you did at 1.1 million may not work for 3 million, and what we're doing at 3 million may not work for 4.5 million,
yeah,
right? Just
yeah,
because new systems come up, new processes, and things change. There's new people in different positions. There's a little bit more of a leadership involved. There's different people. There's less involvement of human now, like where it's phone calls and we're trying to mitigate into strict systems and processes and kind of build that foundation so we can get to 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, and kind of continue growing every single year. What I noticed was the difference, the hardest part was that 500 to a million, right? And
interesting.
it kind of gets a little easier to go from a million to 3.2.
Yeah,
Um, that's kind
yeah,
of what I've noticed.
yeah, I think that makes sense. Like going from 0 to 1 million is hard, but going from 1 to 10 is definitely hard. But you already have a proven process that got you to 1 million. It's just kind of refining as you go and scaling that up. So going from 0 to 1 is harder than it is going from 1 to 10. But
Sure.
what got you from 0 to 1 is completely different than what's going to get you from 1 to 10. So you found the biggest kind of growth pains or obstacles hit around the 500 to $1 million mark.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Really just growing pains in terms of new people, new processes, new systems. And we're constantly trying to innovate and come up with new ideas that previously worked at the scale that we were, but no longer work at the scale that we are now.
love that, dude. Love that. And what's like the team structure for you right now? Like running pacing for a 4.5 business. What's the team structure of your current organization?
Sure. Yep. So we have a CSR manager, right? We have two people that work in the office on their customer service, basically getting all the leads that come in, that converting them into appointments, right? We have three salespeople. We have one office manager. We have one production manager. We have four in-house W-2 crews, and we have two subcontractor crews.
Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
okay. So you're doing a hybrid
A hybrid model, yeah. What I noticed that it's pretty easy. It's easier to scale with subcontractors. However, the difference in painting and coatings is that it's really hard to find a good coating subcontractor, right?
Mhm.
Because a lot of the times the equipment and everything that you really need is super duper expensive. And subcontractors are typically owner operators, right? And typically if they have enough money to get all the equipment, everything that they need, trailers, grinders, vacuums, they typically have money to spend for marketing. At least that's what I've noticed. But it doesn't mean that there's no subcontractors out there for this stuff. It's just a little bit harder to find them, I want to say.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
And so you're only specializing in epoxy and floor coatings. How
correct.
come you didn't branch into painting or things like we work with a lot of painters, obviously, right? So a lot of those painters sometimes branch into epoxy, but it's a much higher barrier of entry because of all the equipment, like you were mentioning. So how come you didn't branch into painting since it's a lower barrier of entry?
Um, that's a good question. I feel like with painting, it's something that's a little bit more complex. I would consider painting a little bit more of a trade, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people look at painting as a professional service and something that, and garage floor coatings are a professional service as well, but I feel like painting has a lot of variables in it. Concrete coatings is something that can be replicated, duplicated, and done the same exact way every single time. The estimating process is a lot easier, right? It's a two-car garage, three-car garage, it's a patio, right? Everything just goes by square footage. There's not too much like fascias. There's not different. There's windows, trims. Like painting has a lot of variables in it, and I feel like it's not. It's I don't want to say easier to scale something that can be replicated and duplicated, but it's a lot simpler, right, to have a good sales process for it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's easier to scale the sales team because it's so replicable. Like one house is completely different than the other because it's like dependent on, the foundation that it's basically built on, right? Like what's the quality of, the wood that's being on there. You have to scrape stuff. Are there dents in it? Whatever. Whereas like a garage floor, it's pretty kind of similar
Standard,
across the board. Yeah. So
more or less.
scaling the sales team is definitely, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
That
I
it's
mean,
easier.
there's cracks in concrete, right? There's soft concrete, hard concrete, but the same goes for paintings, right? Like there's surfaces that are wood, there's surfaces that are metal, right? So it just has its own variables.
Yeah.
Um, but I figured that in the meantime, it makes sense to focus on one thing and be a niche rather than all kinds of other stuff and painting and concrete coatings and doing flooring and all that kind of stuff. Actually, it's interesting because we named the business originally Performance Floors and Coating, and we were going to do vinyl floors and laminate floors, right, and coatings as well, right, and then ended up just sticking to coatings altogether. So that's kind of
Interesting.
how like the name shifted a little bit over time.
Love that. Are you connected with Russell Peach?
Yeah, close friend of mine, absolutely. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
dude, he's a G, man. He's one
very
of our
very close
content
friend of mine.
account.
His shop is actually right next door,
Oh yeah,
down
go
the
like,
street.
dude, go like freaking ding dong ditch it, man. Get him riled up, bro.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. He's a very close friend of mine for sure.
Love that, dude. Love that. So, um, did you know him before? Because I know you went to Jason Phillips, like the boot camps and stuff. Did you know Ross before, or like how did you get connected with Ross there?
So I got connected to him, like getting into the home service industry, understanding a little bit more about it. He kind of introduced me a little bit to Tanner, and drip jobs and
Yeah,
stuff
I love
like that.
Tanner. Yeah, I love Tanner.
Um, and from there, we kind of just maintained a relationship. And um, at the time, we were using the same agency back then. But from we kind of had the same hurdles with it together, right? So we kind of connected from there and just remained in touch. And we're always talking. I consider him a close friend at this point.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I
Yeah,
won't tell that to
for
him
sure.
to his face. There, I'll never tell that to him to his face. But behind his back, dude, he's a good dude.
Yeah, definitely.
Love that, man. So, team structure, you built out a pretty good team of hybrid model. What does your day to day look like? Like, what's the day to day of a $4 million epoxy business owner?
So currently, finding where we have bottlenecks, right, and try to improve them slowly. I guess being available, right, to whatever's needed. Let's say, we're a little bit overloaded on sales. I'll jump back in and do some sales quotes. We're having some challenges in production. I'll jump in, help strategize, and come up with some solutions to problems. Currently, right now, it's team culture, right? Team building, hiring, helping come up with better SOPs, seeing where the bottlenecks really are, and trying to come up with macro solutions for them.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Yeah.
And what platform do you use your whole team? Like, do you run operations on a certain platform? I heard a Slack notification in the back before. Do you have everybody kind of on Slack, like your
Yeah,
subs, your
so
team?
everyone's on Slack. Our installers, everybody's on Slack, and we operate our CRM off of Drip Jobs. So company cam, Drip Jobs, and Slack.
Love that, dude. And how do you
Yeah.
find you are on the operation side? Because you have the sales background with the cars, so obviously your passion, your fortes on the sales side, whether that's scaling the sales team or just really knocking those quotes out of the park. How do you find yourself now on the operation side, like making that switch?
So that's a great question. So what I'm learning is, we're hiring for, or at least, I'm focused on hiring the best for my weakest points, right? So my weakest points is operation and production. So that means that we have to have a very, very good production manager, right? We have to have a very, very good production team, right? Our sales team is incredible as well, right? But um, a lot of it I'm able to kind of help strategize with and be part of that sales team, right? And kind of help motivate and help lead in that direction. But my weak point is production. So it's hiring the right people where you are the weakest, where your weakest link is, right? So as a business owner, if my weakest link is operations, I have to have a good operations manager. I have to have somebody that I can lean on and really know that, hey, listen, when sales sells things, right, operation takes over and, produces that end result.
Love that. Love that, dude. And
Yeah.
man, I'm curious. What's your disc assessment? I'm feeling like a high D, average
High
I.
D, high D, D and C, DC.
Oh, DC.
Yeah,
Interesting. So
CC.
I mean, that makes sense for the sales side with the D, and then
Yeah,
C is more conscientious. So that's more.
kind of organization. Yeah.
Well, that's good though for building SOPs and stuff.
Yeah, so it is, but also for a great operations manager, you need a high I, right? And when you don't have a high I, you need to have somebody in place with a high I.
Got you.
We try and make sure that the production team has, a high I operations manager, and our salespeople are typically ID or DI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm
Risk
a,
assessment is really important. I never realized how important it is until going to Jason Phillips courses and really, studying it. And, if I could go back, I guess I wish I started using DISC and understanding it a little bit sooner. Um, just because you have to have a full DISC around in your whole entire business, right? If you're missing something, somebody else has to have, has to have that other part of it.
Otherwise, that's a weak point in your business.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I put my whole team through. I went to one of the Jason Phillips boot camps, and I put my whole team through disc assessment, dude. Even before I asked my girlfriend out to be officially my girlfriend, I had her go through a disc assessment just because I was like, dude, if I'm gonna date someone, like I gotta know like what makes them tick, right? And the good part is that her and I were so similar, like very high I and like average D.
Hmm.
So I was like, ah, dude, like I got this in the bag, dude. If I know what makes me happy, I know it's gonna make her happy. So
Yeah, 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 exactly. And it kind of works together.
yeah, love that, dude. So talk to me about your whole sales process, like start to finish. What are your lead sources currently right now with your $4.5 million epoxy business?
So we spend money on mainly Facebook ads, right?
Cool.
A little bit of Google ads, and we invest into SEO. We've been investing into every single month, and what we've noticed is that most of our leads, our largest lead source is definitely Facebook, right? Seems to have better quality leads, or they're more expensive, but they're good quality leads. But you got to have a little bit of both, right? Because you got to have those organic searches on Google. Those are people that are high, seem to be ready to go, right? They
Higher
are
intent.
high quality leads, but they're super expensive. I mean, I don't want to say super expensive, but they average between $70 to $90 a lead on average, right?
Mhm.
Depending on the season, it can go up to above 20. But those are super highly qualified leads. I mean, those are typically even calling in. Those are Google ads are searching for you. And, our conversion, our set rate with those are about 75, 80%. And our closing ratio with them is about 50%, right? Facebook leads, our set rate is about 35, 40%, right? 50% depending on the season, right? And our closing ratio with them is about 30 to 40%. Closer maybe 40% on average months. When it's slower, could be closer to that 30 range.
Mhm. What's
But
what's your cost per lead on Facebook?
somewhere between, I'd say, 20 to 30 bucks.
20-30 bucks. Okay, so at a
20, 30
30.
bucks. And the summertime goes up to 50.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're in Florida, so it's slower in the summertime.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough. So at a 35% set rate, then that means your cost per appointment is roughly around like $80 per appointment, and
it's about right.
then yeah, and then 40% close rate. So roughly $175 cost of
Yeah,
acquisition.
about that. Yeah, you want to keep it under 200. Cost per acquisition.
Yeah,
That's about right.
solid. And
Uh,
what's your average job size?
Average job site's about 3,500.
3,500. That's really solid.
Yeah,
That's really solid. And you do all that by are you just primarily like garage floors, or do you do like patios, basements, things like that?
patios, driveways, pool decks, any kind of concrete coatings. Just strictly concrete coatings. We don't no paint, nothing. Just any type of concrete.
Sick, dude. Sick. Man. I love the math part. I love the data behind all this. Okay, so average cost per lead on Google, you said roughly $80.
Yeah, about that. Yeah,
Google, so 80. You said 70 to 80% set rate. So then
Mhm.
that means your cost per appointment is roughly 120.
It's about right. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And then you said 50% close rate. So about closer to like 240
Yeah. So,
acquisition
what
cost.
I look at as a business owner really is, at the end of the day, and our CSR is heavily involved in that, but I every single month I try and take a look at what do we spend on marketing altogether, right? And what is our bottom line revenue? What do we produce from that, right? and we've noticed that we're about 7 to 8% every single month, bottom
Cost of
line,
marketing?
of what we spend on marketing, right? And what's our revenue. So as long as that number is under 9, 10%, there's really no red flags ever, right? And I try not to really like get involved in the behind the scenes of the marketing, right? I kind of just look at that bottom number, and if that bottom number is below, 10%, that's green, right? So
Sick.
if it's
Yeah.
hovering around 9%, that turns yellow. Anything over 10 is in the red, and we're always in that green area. So
Yeah. And do you include marketing retainers in that as well, or is that just
I
strictly ad
do,
spend?
I do, yeah.
Good, good, good. Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. Sick, man. So 240 cost acquisition on Google. Facebook's about 175. For a $4.5 million business, you're doing roughly, if you pace it out on average over a year, roughly like 350 a month.
350. That's about right. Yeah,
350
yeah,
per month.
yeah,
Sick, dude. That is huge, man. Congratulations. Love that.
yeah.
Um,
Well, we
and
just started going in the direction of 350. We're hovering about 300 for a little while.
sick. So sick. So you're spending roughly 25K a month in marketing to get there.
A little bit less than that. Yeah,
A little bit
closer.
less.
I think closer to 20 altogether. Yeah,
Huge, bro.
yeah.
Man, that is a solid return there. You got yourself, Mr. Portnoy.
It is. I mean, so a lot of times, and I see this around. I'm a big advocate of marketing agencies and marketers, and a lot of people in home service industries are not, right, and they constantly say that they're getting scammed, and they're saying that the reality is that their process for converting leads to appointments is just not there, right? They're not following up with leads they don't have a solid sales system. They're getting back to the customers too late, right? So what I've noticed that really helps us out by having that solid number is, one, having a good marketing agency, right? But two, what's important is your in-house process, right? It's almost, to be successful in sales and marketing, you have to have, good solid marketing agency, and you have to have a good solid system to convert them, right? If one of the two are broken, right, you're not going to get results. You can have the best marketing agency, but if you don't have that system to convert them, you're losing. Or you can have the best system to convert them, you don't have an agency that cares. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, dialing it in, having drip jobs, having those automations come in, right? Our CSR calls those customers momentarily, right? Because if you call a Facebook lead, 2 days later, they forgot they clicked on the ad, right? They're scrolling, they clicked on that ad, they forgot, they don't even know why you're calling. But if you call them a couple months, oh yeah, I just saw your ad on Facebook. Oh, and they're mentally thinking, wow, I just saw that before and after picture. I saw what it looks like. It looks awesome. Yeah, cool. Yeah, let's set up a quote.
Yeah.
So getting them on that spot is important. And if someone's not answering the phone, that Trip Jobs automation comes out and they're booking a deal there. They're booking
Yeah,
their
it helps that,
appointment
that
there.
ongoing nurturing for sure.
Yeah, for
Man,
sure.
dude, Lawrence, me and you are gonna be freaking best friends, dude. I love that you said that. It's like there's definitely good marketers, there's definitely bad marketers. It's just like how there's good coaches and there's bad coaches, or good personal trainers and bad personal trainers. But at the end of the day, if you have a good personal trainer, but you're not doing the lift on your end, which is the diet, the movement, sleep, all that stuff, it's like you're not going to get as much progress compared to someone that is, right?
Mhm.
And all of the variables are saying the personal trainers doing the same thing for you as they're doing for other client, but other clients put in more work on the back end. That's
Sure.
basically keeping that those results coming in. So yeah, dude, I fully love that. So walk me through some of your processes. So you have your CSR that just contacts leads. Is it a local or is it a VA, or what's that process look like for you?
No, she's in house. She lives local. She lives in Tampa. She's been with us for a little while now, and she knows. She has her scripts dialed in, and she knows what to say, how to say it. She follows up with the customers right away, calls and basically sells them on the appointment rather than selling them on the price.
Mm,
Then appointment pops up on the salespeople's calendars on drip jobs, and they go there and they go out and they have a whole the Jason Phillips sales system basically.
The
Follow the
F7 sales
script.
system.
They never say estimate. It's accurate written proposal. They go out and show the customer samples. They use tools that are needed, such as floor. You show them what their floor would look like. Sit down with them, go over the process, build the value in it, and ultimately ask for the sale. And
Love
if we
that.
don't sell them on the spot, then we just continue up with the drip jobs follow up process. We also have our CSR actually contacts the customers on top of that the next day, just to give them a call. Hey, how was your appointment? How did everything go? Hey, just wanted to touch base. I see you didn't go through with it. Was there a reason? Is there something that we can do to help you? And oftentimes, second face the name, they might say, hey, listen, you guys are just a little bit high. Oh, awesome. What is there a specific number you're thinking about or so? And they might tell her, I was hoping to be closer to 3,000, right? And sometimes that's where she contacts the salesperson. Salesperson gets involved, and we start seeing what we can do. Can we leave a yard sign, right? Can we you have any referrals? What can we do to kind of mitigate that small gap? And we just go from there.
Love that, dude. So what are your closing percentages right now?
About 40%.
Across the board for all forms of marketing?
All across the board, yeah.
Same.
Google
Man,
ads are closer to 55, right? 50, 55. Facebook ads are closer to 35.
makes sense. Yeah, totally. So 4.5 is the goal this year. What about 5 years from now? Like what's a number that Lawrence wants to see 5 years from now, 2030?
Um, I would say, branch into either other home service businesses or locations, right?
Go
Um,
more franchise?
yeah, yeah. I think, if you're profitable, right, in that, 4.5, 5 million mark, even, have a solid foundation, solid team at even, under 10 million, um, you're good. The market is, sustainable to handle, pretty high revenue, but I'd rather have a bottom line higher EBITDA, right, than have a $10 million revenue and disaster, right, and have a very very low EBITDA. So our focus really is going to be eventually is the bottom line. Right now we're kind of focused on scaling and having everything that we need, and eventually we're going to fine tune that bottom line and have a healthy business from there.
Sick, dude. So you're just gonna basically focus more on profit rather than a
Then
certain
growth.
number or
Yeah.
yeah, because I know like for epoxy, like you don't get too many repeat customers unless it's
You
a
know,
different service. I was doing some research and it's like the frequent residential like repeat customer for like epoxy business is 7 to 10 years. So you will probably get some in the next 5 years for like the repeat businesses, but it's not like painting where it's like customers
mm-mm.
are going to call you back for this room or that room or outside or whatever, right? So unless you have those upsell opportunities, so um, at what point do you think that at one point you're going to hit market cap?
No, I don't. No, because there's always new construction, right? New construction just keeps growing. It might definitely slow down for sure, but I don't think that there is a market cap truly because coatings are so new and people are still getting into it. And ultimately, there's still commercial jobs. People are redoing floors. People are moving into new homes. They might not like the color that was there before. They might want to change it up, right? Coatings don't really fail. Like it's a one-time application. If it's done right, it doesn't fail. It's something that you put down right one time and it lasts 15 years, no problem, right?
Right,
But it
right.
definitely wears down, right? So there's wear and tear and it gets old, dirty, and people just want to change it up and freshen up the coating sometimes. But ultimately, with all the plans of new construction, at least in this market, I just don't see endless demand. I mean, there's companies I know up north, right, like in Jacksonville, that have 50 something crews and they've been around for years. And I ask myself, like, what happens if they just run out of floors to coat, right? And I haven't seen that happen.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I was thinking too, because like there isn't that repeat business, right? So it's like you
Yeah.
you service so many people. There's a lot of houses to serve, of course, in the Tampa area. And you're just gonna kind of expand and expand and expand and expand. Um, so do you think that the next move for you then is going to be a new service in the area or new location with the same team?
New
Or not same
location.
team, but same kind of systems.
Location for sure.
Location, yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit of easier lift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you prospecting an area?
Not necessarily, not yet. We want to make sure our SOPs are fully dialed in, and that, we have a great model, right, that people can see and be like, all right, wow, this is the end result. We want X, Y, and Z, and this is how it's going to operate. So what I've learned is that, we made SOPs, but they change, right?
Mhm.
So as we made SOPs, and our mistake is that we never edited those SOPs, right? So those SOPs that we had originally at 1 million, they're garbage, right? just because things, well, I don't want to say they're garbage, but because we didn't edit them as we went, they're outdated. So now
Mm,
it's like, all right, at what point do you redefine those SOPs and make them a final, right? In only 3 years in business, I've noticed that there's a lot of things that still change. We're constantly fine tuning processes. And a mistake that we made was not fine tuning those SOPs. So it's almost like we're starting from scratch, recreating everything, buttoning it all up, and then being able to go from there.
got you, got you. And then are you going to go more as like you're going to be the same owner and operator? It's just you're going to have like a GM kind of run the location, or you're going to go like franchise, like where someone's kind of
Franchise.
buying into? Oh,
Yeah.
sick,
Yeah.
sick. That's a big opportunity. I know there. Are you friends with Brandon Vaughn?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a beast, dude. He's a
Yeah.
beast.
He
He's
knows a
killing
lot
it.
about that stuff.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, love that, man. You should definitely connect if you plan on franchising. You should definitely connect with him. I know he's got that
Absolutely.
abundance mindset. Like I'm sure there's a lot he'd love to share with you.
Yeah. I do coaching calls with him actually.
Oh no way! Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go,
So
dude.
we use his system for HireBus.
Hire bus for
Yeah.
that's what you do for the placing the people.
Yeah. So that we use his system basically for hiring anybody new.
Sick. Did you go through
Yeah.
his self assessment?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Did you do the CEO one for yourself?
Actually, I scored like a 6 or 7,
Yeah, dude, I had a
which
6 or a
is
7 too, man. But it's
you did
awesome.
too.
Yeah, yeah. Because he came to PaintCon, and I went through it with him there, and it was really cool, dude. It's
I
so
don't know if it's my ADHD. I don't know why. It's really interesting why but when I talked to him about that, he was like, "Wow, I scored a 6 or 7 as well." Which just means basically that you don't have a well-rounded disc, which not too many people do, but you just need a strong general manager, strong operations managers in place for that. That's what he said. At least that's the what I got from him is that it's better to you're not in the everyday day to day in and out of it.
yeah, yeah. Man, it was so interesting. My it was I think there's one for self confidence, and I had 100, and I was telling him I'm like, dude, I would have been 110 if it was possible.
Yeah,
Self
yeah, yeah,
confidence. Yeah.
yeah,
That's sick, dude. But Lawrence, man, you've been crushing it. Obviously, your success is a testimony to you as a person, the systems you build, the team you build, and obviously you're gonna hit some crazy numbers over the next 5 to 10 years. But I'm curious, dude. If you had to restart from day one, what is something that you would have done differently?
Oh man, if I would have restarted from day one, it depends on if I had if I had a large amount of capital, right, to redo it from day one, it would have been to hire the right people in the right seats right away, suck up, not make profit for a little bit, right, and really just dial in heavy from the very beginning and be able to scale up. Um, if you're somebody that's starting out, right, you don't have a lot of capital, right, it's really using the disc and hiring those right people as well and promoting yourself out of certain positions. If you're starting out, quickly hire where you have weak points at, right? So if you're a sales guy, right, and you're starting out, quickly hire a good production team. If you're a production guy, right, and you want to scale a business but you don't have the sales skills, hire that best salesperson, right? So hire for the positions that you are not good at. So if I was to restart, I would have hired a great production manager, somebody really like off the bat in the very, very beginning, or partnered up with somebody like that that can really help scale and see a side of the business that you don't see.
Mm,
Just because there's so many different things to businesses that you can't be good at everything, right? You can't be good at in maps. There's marketing, admin, sales, and production. You can't be. You just your disc is not going to allow you to be good at every single part of it unless you're a mediocre, owner operator. And typically, owner operators don't last the longest, right? Just because
yeah,
they get burnt out. So it's important to build that system and team around you. So I
yeah.
guess the right people in the very beginnings, the biggest thing that I would do differently.
Lean into your strengths, supplement your weakness.
Correct.
Love it, dude. And
Yeah.
if you can, what was the main, because you said the biggest hurdle or the biggest kind of blocker was when you went from 500,000 to a million. Is that something you run in pretty frequently in the epoxy side? Like a lot of people are struggling to go, like to get that gap kind of filled?
I'd say the biggest thing is from one crew to two crews. Um, the reason is because you need to have, in order to start hiring that second crew, you have to have great training in place, right? You have to have great systems and processes. You have to be able to make enough profit, right, to have more people and more guys in your crew, right? And at the same time, be able to buy all the equipment needed for that second crew.
Mm.
So I think for a lot of business owners, the bottleneck, right, is finances when it comes to 500 to a million. Because when you have a lot, and you're spending a lot of money on marketing, you're trying to book out, right? You're also giving a salesperson commission. And at the same time, you have 4 to 5 guys per crew, right? You're not left with a lot of profit at one crew, right? But once you get to two crews, you're doing a lot better. But to get from one crew to two crews is really the biggest bottleneck that I see. And you increase your budget on marketing, right? But then you're highly weeding into your bottom line, right? But you don't have those results yet. So it's important if you're pre-selling for two crews, use those deposits that you're getting from customers. Take those deposits, use it to help train, buy equipment, and be able to be up and running and produce for two crews.
And is that what you did to go to that 500 to a mil, was basically reinvested deposits into just like basically, getting equipment, things like that to set up the foundation stronger?
So I wouldn't say that's what I did, but I was very very good on making sure that the profits were reinvested right in. I just wasn't really taking a paycheck for a while. But if you're in a position as somebody that needs to take a paycheck and at the same time you need to you're relying on the business for your finances, that's something that I would definitely recommend doing.
Love that. Love
Yeah.
that. So, one single piece of advice for somebody who's going through that right now, what would it be?
Um, Hiring the right people originally, and hiring people that had this similar vision as you, and ones that want to get to the second crew, want to get from one crew to two crews to three crews, right? And people that are going to work with you to get to those goals. People that are motivated. If you're hiring people, you can't hire them as helpers. If you're hiring coding and installers, you have to hire them with the motivation of, hey, what can I do to become a lead installer, right? And they will help you get there. Why? Because they care about the quality of work. They care about making sure things are right. You also want to, have a great salesperson, right? That can outsell, right? Everybody and outsell competition and outsell um, with great margins to allow you to be able to take that money and reinvest it right back in.
Love that. Love that,
Yeah.
dude. And let me ask you, man, you started this, you said 4 years ago. So it was like 2021,
3 years ago.
3 years ago. So
Yeah,
2022.
correct. Yep. This
Cool.
actually next month is 3 years.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, okay, 3 years ago, would you have seen it being as big as it is now?
No, not at all. No.
Okay. And obviously, it's not all glamour and glitz. You have hard times. You have, cash flow issues at some point, especially going from that one to two crew. You have late nights, relationships get affected. It's just how business is. Um, Let me ask you, dude, and I want you to think about this one, but has it been worth it?
I'd say it's going to be worth it. You know, a lot of times we don't see delayed gratification until later on, right? Everyone always wants to start a business and see profits and see the money. And quite frankly, when you're in the growth stage, you don't see any of that for a little bit, right? But I know it's going to be worth it later on, right? Because I'm looking at years down the road, right? A business becomes an asset, right? And when a business is built right based on great systems, processes, and people, your business should be the one helping your family rather than the business being a strain on your family, right?
Mhm.
So I know that as the time goes, as we're getting to where we got to be, and I'm starting to see the light. You know, I've seen it. I've seen it already. I see the results. But to really get to where we want to be the right way, and really be fully sustainable as a super duper healthy EBITDA with little involvement, I know it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Alex Ramosi has a quote that said, do you follow Alex?
Absolutely, yeah. Him and
Yeah,
his
he has
wife.
a
Yeah,
quote that says, "Starting a business, it always takes longer than you usually think. It's always harder than you really think, and it always takes longer to make the money that you really want. And it's just we start a business to have that freedom, but it's like that freedom is set through our own efforts and our own systems and our own people in the business. It's not going to be right away, but like you said, it will be worth it. Like no matter what hardship you're going through, whatever is happening in your business, no matter what fires you have to put out, it's like think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, how happy you're going to be that you're going through that right now. And like you were saying, dude, what got you from 0 to 1 million is going to be different. What gets you from 1 million to 10 million, but at the same time too, when you're at 1 million, you're going to be like going through issues, and those are going to be the worst issues you've ever gone. But then when you're at 10 million, you're going to be like, gosh, I wish I had those $1 million issues. You know what I mean? So it's that I
Yeah,
guess
yeah, yeah.
that gratefulness of like whatever you're going through, like there's a reason you're going through it, but it's all going to be worth it in the end.
Yeah, some key things that I've kind of learned, at least, is and one of my coaches, Jason Phillips, he mentions this, that the number one rule is in business is stay in business, right? So when things get hard, right, just keep going through it, right? It doesn't mean it's a challenge, it's a growing pain, right? But also, what I've learned is with what you just mentioned is that the people that are with you in the very beginning are typically not going to be the same people that are with you in the second phase, right? A lot of times, I mean, we still have people that started when they're, from the very beginning, but more or less, people that start with you are not always going to be the people that end with you. And, people come and go, right? But the important part of it is to cast that vision into people that have a similar vision and give them a goal to stay and continue focusing on what it's going to look like in the end with them, right? And promote within, try and give people that, work hard, that are there from the very, very beginning, opportunities to move up. Because in the blue collar industry, in the labor force, a lot of the times we don't see that. Nobody wants to work for nothing, right? People want to work with an end goal. And when you can provide, employees with an end goal of, hey, this is the direction that we're heading, and we're gonna make it there. We're gonna have bumps in the road. It's gonna be hard. We're gonna struggle. We're gonna go through tough times. But in the end, this is what it's gonna look like. It goes a long way.
Amen, dude. Amen. I
Yeah.
love that, man. I love that. Cool, bro. Well, any last, advices or things you'd want to say before we wrap up here?
No, I think it's an awesome industry. I think that it's really just something that you got to just keep your head down and plow through the tough times and keep going, and don't get excited with the good times, but don't get upset at the bad times, and celebrate little wins. Small wins need to be celebrated as well.
Yeah, dude. Celebrate those wins.
Yep.
Love that. Awesome, Lawrence. Well, thank you so much, man. You're an absolute beast. It's awesome to see the level of growth you've had. Congratulations on entering your third year or completing your third year of business, dude. Can't wait to see where you're going to be in the next 3 years. And if people want to get in touch with you, they can do so. How?
Yeah, just shoot me a message. On my personal messenger on Facebook. Lawrence Portnoy, and I always love connecting with people, networking, and learning from other people that are better than me as well, and learn from people that have different side of things. It's networking is huge, and I'd love to talk to anyone and everyone.
Love that, dude. Love that. You're a beast, Lawrence. Thank you so much, and I
Thank
appreciate
you so
you.
much
And
for having me, Lucas.
absolutely, man. Have an amazing rest of your Friday.
You too, man. Thank you.
Cheers.